I shall make a few claims here. Some people say you can't test without requirements. I say you can't know the requirements until you test. Some people say you shouldn't do informal testing, you should do formal testing. I say you can't do good formal testing unless it is on a sound foundation of informal testing. So I'm testing a medical device that has to, by the way, not kill anyone last year. And my job is to be the architect of all the testing for this thing, and specifically the architect of the power accuracy testing. FDA's got to like what I'm doing, right? So here's what the requirements say. They say you can have power going out of this medical device to go zap a human heart with 200 watts of healing energy. And it's got to be within plus or minus 20% of the target power, or else it's right out. Or else if it's 20% more, that's bad. If it's 20% less, that's bad. So top, bottom, you see. Now, the requirement said that the power goes on, and then it goes for a little while, and then it goes off. Right? That's all the requirements told me. Well, I knew that that sounded like a pretty simplistic situation, so I said, I have to do some exploratory testing. I've got to play around with the accuracy testing, so I set up the power meter. When they finally let me test this product, they set up the power meter. I started playing around, trying different power levels, different loads, and I discovered that what the requirements told me didn't turn out to be actually the truth. It turns out that the shape isn't like that. But you see, if the shape is like this, I can use a two-tailed confidence interval and statistically analyze all the data points there, and I can statistically show that the power is accurate. But not if it's like this. This is called a damped oscillation. I know because I went right to Wikipedia and looked up the most technical jargon I could find for that shape. It's a damped oscillation. And I showed that this only happens at high loads and low power levels. And I showed it to the designers, and they said, well, of course. I mean, that makes sense, the way it's designed. I'm like, you didn't tell us this. There's nothing in the requirements. Of course it's not in the requirements because they wish it didn't do that. It just so happens that it would cost an enormous amount of money to stop it from doing that. So maybe what we have to do is modify the requirements. I did informal testing to discover what really happens, and I found out, see, I cannot apply the statistical formula to that, because that is not a Gaussian distribution of error from the mean. If you don't understand what I just said, trust me, it's not right. So what we had to do is change the requirement. Now that we've done a little testing, we've found out, oh, we can't really afford to do what we originally thought we would like to do with our cartoonishly simplistic requirements. So let's change the requirements. And this happened over and over again as I was doing the informal testing. As I would meet the requirements on the field of battle, the requirements would retreat, leaving me in possession of the ground, the tester, reigning supreme. My point is, and the right font is not on this computer, and I want to lodge a complaint about that. Requirements are ideas at the intersection between what we want and what we can have. Sure, you can want lots of things, but it might be very expensive to get it. It's also, though, at the intersection of a third point, and that's how we know that we got it. The process of testing, the process of attempting to discover if the requirements are met is also a process of negotiating what those requirements ought to be. And this happened over and over and over again in this project until we had this really complex set of power requirements that we were ready to go to the FDA with. It's a good thing that I didn't try to specify full formal tests that had to be kept to very closely and rigidly before I did, and I insisted upon doing, the informal, inexpensive testing to try this out and see if it was going to work. This is but one example. But I've had these examples on every rigorous testing project that I've ever been on. Bottom line, You don't know the requirements until after you've tested. Testing is one of the ways you discover the requirements. And good formal testing is always based on excellent informal testing that teaches you what the formal testing needs to be. I have 10 seconds left, so I will pause dramatically. I'm out.